because Congress was supposed to be releasing the complete Epstein files. Now, astute political observers will understand that there is no way that the MAGA Republicans who control both houses of Congress were going to do anything to damage their fundamental interest. Number one, first of all, that being maintaining their grip on power and protecting Donald Trump. So, of course, the documents that were produced today were, in fact, what's been in the public record for years. It was completely and totally a sham. It's not about the victims, it's not about the truth, and it's not about what's right or good for the country itself. Notwithstanding the fact that he had nothing to worry about, Donald Trump, once committed to diverting attention, is going to go all out. And he pulled what I like to call a Donald Trump, something crazy, unprecedented in American history, and massively illegal. And today, he pushed another boundary and crossed another red line by killing, illegally, I believe, criminals using military force without due process, without notice, without an opportunity to be heard, and without a trial. Now, there are justifications provided in his social media post because this is, murder by social media post. This is Donald Trump. This is his administration. It's how they do it. And those justifications he provides in this social media are totally false, and I'm going to prove it. However, I think it's important first to talk about why this is so dangerous what he did today. Now, as you can see, he did a missile strike on a small boat that he alleged was carrying 11 cartel members of the gang known as TDA or Trinidad Agua. This is a gang that is focused on making money through criminal activity. They have been designated as a foreign terrorist organization. And Marco Rubio has abused that designation during this second term by taking, those gangs, cartels, and so forth that are focused entirely on financial interest. They're not focused on ideology, and they're not focused on changing, political boundaries or anything like that. That is not what you think of with a traditional terrorist. Think about Al Qaeda. Think about the PLO, Palestinian Islamic Jihad. You think about Hezbollah. Think about Hamas. They're focused. They make money solely to fund their violent activities, which are focused on changing, the politics or imposing their religious ideology on others. We have never designated criminal organizations focused on making money, like cartels, as foreign terrorist organizations as a pretext to kill them without any kind of due process. In fact, ever since we've had a war on drugs, El Chapo, Ariano Felix, every single drug dealer and cartel kingpin you can think about that has ever been brought to justice, even Manuel Noriega, who was a head of state in Panama, who was involved in drug trafficking, allegedly, was brought to the United States and charged. They are extradited, they are seized, and they are given the same rights that we would get as American citizens if we were charged. And that is, of course, the fundamental components that identifies us as Americans, is that everybody has a right to a trial. And if you look back at our history, it's critical to our identity and purpose as a country. Now, what you have, I believe, constitutes a war crime, a violation of the laws of armed conflict, international law, as well as American criminal law. You cannot kill people who are just criminals. Facts matter, not labels. Someone's jaywalking. What's to stop Marco Rubio from designating them as a foreign terrorist organization? And in fact, what other types of criminals focused on money could be designated as foreign terrorist organizations? What's the fundamental difference between an auto theft ring and drug dealers? They're both focused on making money, and they're both breaking the law. And they both don't kill people outside of their criminal activities in order to impose an agenda. Same thing with diamond smugglers. Same things with any kind of criminal you can think about. If you can turn a cartel member or a drug dealer into a terrorist as a way to bypass all of our criminal laws, protections in our Constitution, to just kill them without any warning anywhere in the world, what's to stop that same process being applied to other kinds of criminals? Any criminal becomes a foreign terrorist organization, potentially under Donald Trump, who's always pushing the envelope and doing illegal stuff left and right, and then they can be killed as a pretext. That's why this is so incredibly dangerous, what happened today. We have crossed a definite red line in our constitutional system of justice. Now, let's look at the specifics of what he said and why it's completely false. It's outrageous. This post on your screen, he says, earlier this morning, I'll paraphrase, on my orders, the U.S. military conducted a kinetic strike against Trinidad Agua. He calls them narco terrorists. Again, Labels don't matter. Jaywalkers could be designated as terrorists. It doesn't make them that. These are just drug dealers. They were in under the control of Nicolas Maduro, responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, so on and so forth, acts of violence and terror across the United States and Western Hemisphere. The strike occurred while the terrorists were at sea in international waters transporting illegal narcotics. 11 people were killed. No assertion they were threatening our forces. There's no self-defense involved here. And there's two lies in what I just read. Number one, that they are under the control of Nicolas Maduro. Completely false, and I'll prove it. Secondly, that they're responsible for mass murder, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, and other violent crimes across the United States. Also, completely false. So there was another post from the White House. Again, they are showing this out there like it's sport, okay? President Trump terminates 11 Trinidad Agua narco terrorists. So there's no question this was on Trump's orders, and what he said was the purpose and justification behind what happened. Okay, so let's test that assertion that TDA as a gang is under the control of Nicolas Maduro. As with many things that Donald Trump says, when he actually has to go into court, it completely falls apart. We've seen it with Pam Bondi. We've seen it with immigration cases. We've seen it with what they've, all the people they've charged, whether it's people being, exercising their free speech rights and having their student visas revoked and being, thrown in some ICE facility down in the sweltering swamps of Louisiana, or whether it's Abrego Garcia, whether it's many others. What they say outside of court is never what they're able to prove under the bright lights of the court itself. And that's the same thing that happened here. What you have in front of you is a case where it was involved in the revocation of temporary protected status for Venezuelans. And one of the key issues in this case that the Trump DOJ had alleged is that we need to revoke the TPS of Venezuelans because they're involved in TDA, and TDA is committing crimes all across the country. So the same allegation Trump makes in the social media post is the same allegation that is made in this court case. And they got completely obliterated, totally rinsed, and embarrassed. In fact, the only evidence was the opposite, that TDA doesn't commit crimes in the United States. They do not have an operational presence here. Let's read along. So starting at line 11, it says, although the TDA gang is a powerful criminal organization in Venezuela and some other parts of South America, there is no evidence of a structured or operational presence in the United States. Okay? Line 13, expert testimony. According to the co-director of Inside Crime, a think tank that specializes in investigating organized crime, and this is provided in the declaration, so it is expert testimony, in the Americas and assessing state efforts to combat these organizations. Line 15 at the end, all the way to the right, local police we have spoken to in the United States have not asserted that TDA has any significant criminal operations in the country. Go down to 19. Again, Dudley declaration, meaning it was submitted under oath like an affidavit. This is expert testimony. He is stating it is rare, indeed practically unheard of, for foreign street gang and prison gangs from Latin America to gain a significant foothold in the United States due to an array of complex factors. In fact, in March of 2024, when they looked at everything across the country, all they could find was 2 criminal cases in which TDA was even mentioned. All right, so let's look at this. Again, this is another part of this judicial opinion. These are findings tested in the crucible of litigation and discovery. What can you actually prove in court, Donald Trump? You can't prove anything. In February 18th, 2025, they had identified only 5 federal cases having any TDA connection. However, none of these cases appeared to be connected to each other or the international structure of the gang outside the U.S. The details of the case do not suggest any sophisticated criminal operations or modus operandi, and there's no discernible pattern of criminal behavior. Indications these people were basically operating as TDA, the gang. What this all means, and I've read this entire opinion several times, is that there are members of TDA, members of TDA back in Venezuela or wherever, Central America, South America, who came to the United States and committed a crime and happened to have the former status of a TDA member. But they were not doing that on behalf of the gang. Thus, what Donald Trump said about the reason why he killed these people without a trial, an unprecedented act in American history, is completely false. It's just totally made up. Now, let's look at the actual strike, and I'll get to the second thing that is totally false about what he said, and that is whether TDA is acting on behalf of Nicolas Maduro. So here you have a boat, allegedly 11 people in it. You can see that it's not that big, maybe 20, 25 feet, maybe going 20 miles an hour. Clearly, it's not trying to escape pursuit. It's not trying to get away. I mean, it is just a boat going at moderate speed somewhere in international waters, somewhere around Venezuela, allegedly. We don't know what intelligence was used to gather information to justify the strike. We don't know what the pre-strike protocols are, and we don't know if anything's been recovered or if there will be a bomb damage assessment of any kind. We just don't know. This is entirely relying upon what was said in the social media post from a government that lies all the time. And real quick, if it is truly a drug smuggling boat, why are there 11 people on it? Why would logically 11 people take the risk of getting caught and arrested to transport drugs when, you would assume based upon what's on that boat, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 guys was all that'd be necessary to load and unload? Doesn't make sense. And you hope this is not innocent people, fishermen, or God heaven forbid, a refugee boat. And one more thing, real quick. Remember, the Trump administration sent hundreds of innocent people to gulags all around the world and has made all kinds of mistakes in the administration of its government, but especially with respect to how it's handled immigration and criminal law related issues. So it stands to reason that they are prone to make mistakes in areas like this that are, subject matter and geographically related to the areas where they've screwed up many times before in very severe ways, and then lied about it. Again, 4 engines, 3 or 4 engines, not really going that fast. This is the night vision or thermal, probably night vision. Definitely night vision because you wouldn't see the waves on thermal like that. Could be a combined forward-looking infrared and night vision itself. Here it's going, a little faster there. There you go. Everybody in that boat is dead. And that's what it said in Trump's social media post, that 11 people were killed. So that's where we're at. So what about this whole thing that Nicolas Maduro is in control of TDA? There's a problem with that. And the problem with that is that it is directly contrary to what Donald Trump's own intelligence services said in April of 2025. This is an NPR article. I've read it, but basically just for the headline, U.S. intelligence memo says Venezuelan government does not control Tren de Agua gang. And if you want the actual assessment itself, it's right here. And the specific purpose of what the intelligence services were looking at was, does Maduro control TDA? And they found, no, he does not. In fact, they are in opposition to each other. So Trump's own intelligence refutes the basis for why he violated the rights of people, that are criminals, why he committed what appears to be murder under American criminal law and definitely a war crime. These people were just criminals floating along, God knows where. And it was so easily disprovable. And you need to think about what this means implication-wise. I mean, I think we've shown that there's all kinds of problems with what happened, and it's an unprecedented act. And that it creates a really dangerous precedent. It opens the door to targeting all kinds of other people who qualify as criminals, designating them as terrorists, and using force against them without due process, including Americans. But in the broader context of Donald Trump's governance, what you have here is a situation where he has shown that he disregards the law. Just today, and I'll have this in another video, there was an opinion that came out of the Northern District of California, federal court decision, again, after discovery, after a trial, a long deliberated and hard-fought case, not some emergency order that's issued last minute, where it was clearly found through the evidence that Donald Trump believes that under Article 2 of the Constitution, as the president, he can do whatever he wants. And he has said, I can do whatever I want in his own press conferences. And he thinks he can ignore statutes. He thinks he can ignore laws, thinking, just do whatever he believes in that day fits what he wants and what he wants to do. I mean, it is crazy, it's unprecedented. We're a nation of laws. And if he believes that he can do what this is today, killing people, okay, illegally, clearly, then you must imagine that he'd definitely be willing to meddle with elections and do things with respect to the fundamentals of our democracy. This shows how far he's willing to go. And we're just getting started, really. We were maybe, 7 months into a 4-year term, and it's getting worse and worse and worse exponentially every single day. So that's where we're at. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see what the updates are on this. Hopefully, there's not more military interventions in Venezuela. And we don't know how this is going to end. We don't know what the mission is. We don't know what the focus is. We don't know how they're going to measure success. Are they trying to reduce drug smuggling? How do they measure that? You know, all kinds of problems, all kinds of questions. Hopefully, this is a one-off distraction thing. Knowing Donald Trump, it probably isn't. Expect nothing good. Have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Appreciate you. Have a great night.